Well, hello, everybody. I'm Kathy Popwell, and I'd like to welcome you to our new Woman Time Conversations. Woman Time Conversations is an opportunity for women to come and share their stories, deep feeling, big hearted, nature loving women. And I am so excited that today, for our launch episode, that we have Gypsy Artemis here to share with us. Actually, Gypsy, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit? I was going to do it, but I'm feeling a little bit nervous and unprepared.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm a solo mama of two beautiful children, aged 6 and 11. I've had a really, really interesting life, a very different upbringing with gay mum, so that was really interesting, and it's kind of made me a very open person, and I really like to work in the places where most people are scared, like around abortion and menarche and end of life and tantra and self-pleasure and all these really interesting taboo kind of subjects. So I've been a facilitator for about 23 years, and I've been doing shamanic practice for about 10 years. And yeah, moved into more tantra sort of stuff, more edgy, sexy stuff in the last few years. And probably the biggest thing happening in my life right now is that I got a terminal diagnosis back in September 2019. So that's the big journey that is now. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Right. So I'll just share a little bit I met Gypsy through a mutual friend of ours, and at the time we were both sharing women's circles down on the Central Coast. I think I'd already sort of relocated to far north Queensland, but I was traveling back and forth a lot at the time and sharing circles when I could. And so we had that connection, and then it sort of slowly grew from there, and we've been continuing to witness each other's journeys since that time, which has been a beautiful thing. And I actually attended a really powerful experience, one of Gypsy's workshops, and I made my medicine drum, the one that I use in circle, made my medicine drum with Gypsy and her ex, actually. They were both facilitating, and it was such a powerful, amazing drum making experience. I really loved that. And then when I was feeling about sharing Woman Time Conversations, and I've been watching Gypsy's journey since 2019, and actually I had another girlfriend who had a breast cancer diagnosis at a really similar time, and I was sort of followed her journey a little bit closer because she was in Cairns and back and forth, so we got to have that personal connection. But I've been watching Gypsy's journey from afar, and then my other girlfriend, she actually passed away a few months earlier this year, and I had really wanted to have this chat with her, and I missed that opportunity. And then I see Gypsy post just a few weeks ago, actually, on is it Dying to Know Day? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Dying to Know Day. And the things that she wrote at that time, it really it reminded me about, just how little we talk about death and dying. And I have a personal experience of that lack of support and understanding and knowing and safe spaces to go with grief from when my father was dying on a really long journey. He had Parkinson's for 25 years, and he passed away in 2018, I think. Yeah, 2018, because Lily Star was born in 2019. And I was just like, I've got to get Gypsy on, and I've just had that urgency, and I'm so excited that you are our first Woman Time Conversation. I've got a dog chewing on my arm. He's trying to get some attention. There he is. So That's how we met. And Gypsy actually did write up a really beautiful like life description leading up to this point. And I'm going to share that on my website where this interview will go as well. So if you'd like to read more of Gypsy's backstory, I'm going to invite you to go there, which is kathypopplewell.com. But today we're going to talk about her breast cancer journey from diagnosis. And then we're also going to talk about what has she learned from this experience and how has her life priorities changed, and explore what to say and what not to say with somebody that is in an active living but also active dying journey. We're going to talk about leaving legacy, and what's most important in the end. And then at the end, how you can support Gypsy in her journey as well. Really want to include that in. She's calling for 100 angels to help support her. And I really want to be a part of helping to support that personally, but also just sharing the story and getting it out there and hoping that more angels jump on in. So we'll talk about that at the end. So let's get into it, Gypsy. I'd love for you to share, how did this part of your journey begin back in 2019, or you can go back a little bit further if you like.
Yeah, I think we do need to go back a little bit further. And I just want to start by saying that I want this to reach as many women as possible, because if we can save one person from having the same experience as me, then my death is worthwhile. So almost my whole life I've had fibrocystic breast tissue. So that's dense breast tissue. When you feel it, it's lumpy. They're big lumps. They're not like little pea lumps, but they're big lumps. And I've had like cysts and the kind of breast that a mammogram nurse said, oh, we can't even mammogram your breast because they're too dense. So I regularly went and had breast examinations with my Women's Health Centre doctor, and she always just did manual examinations with her hands. And I didn't know at the time that fibrocystic breast tissue can lead to breast cancer. So I was a little bit oblivious to the facts. And so I was vigilant. So I did go every year or every 2 years because I was concerned, but it turns out that she wasn't vigilant enough. So we're sort of in the middle of, is there a medical negligence case? So that's how negligent it was. So, and I do believe that if I'd got a second opinion at that time, that my GP would definitely have sent me for biopsies or ultrasounds or MRI, because my mum died of cancer, my nan had cancer, and adding to this fibrocystic breast tissue situation, it really was setting me up for a cancer diagnosis. So the year before I got diagnosed, I was having an ultrasound, no biopsy, but just an ultrasound, and they failed to pick it up because some cancers are like little peas and some are what are called invasive lobular. So they sort of have roots that spread out and they're a little bit harder to diagnose. So, but if I had been checking my armpits, I would have felt the cancer there because there were little peas under my arms. So the message would be to women to not only check your breasts every month, but really feel both of your armpits. And if you feel any lumps there, to go and get checked. So yes, I was doing all the right thing. I went for a scan the year before. They didn't find anything. It was a trainee scanner, admittedly. So she possibly lacked the expertise to pick it up. But how I eventually found out, I mean, I remember looking in the mirror going, my breast looks different, and thinking I must go and check that out. But I was in the middle of an ayahuasca apprenticeship at the time, and I went and drank medicine one weekend, and ayahuasca showed me that I had cancer. So she showed me telling my children, and she showed me telling the kid's dad. And so when I came back, I was like, holy shit, is that my fears or is that actual fact? And I better go and get it checked out. And I went The following day, I went to start the process and it just went from bad to worse. So I've ended up with a stage 4 terminal diagnosis from the outset, which I've probably had cancer for, I reckon, probably 10 years. It's conceivable that it's 10 years. So definitely since my child was born, like I had chronic fatigue many, many years ago, and that could have been the start of the cancer. So yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
And would you like to share like how women might check their breasts at all?
Yeah, I think if you Google something on the internet, you could probably find an actual manual showing, but you know, it's the doing this kind of thing around, like good to do it in the shower or with moisturizer on, and you know, you're feeling around like this and from all different areas and checking, you know, really deep in your armpits. And you know, our breast tissue changes in our cycle, so we might be tender breast and lumpy before we bleed, but it's really good to get to know your breasts.
Yes.
And maybe I would go as far as going to your GP, one that you trust, and getting them to show you what to do and how to do it, and actually making it, you know, maybe every month when you ovulate, or maybe the first of every month you do a breast examination on both sides, both armpits. And if there's anything that's untoward, just go and get a check. Like, don't put it off. Yeah, that would be my advice. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And so you're looking for changes mainly.
Yeah.
Something that feels different.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to share, how has this journey of having this, you know, stage 4 diagnosis, and I guess like, well, one, like people might not know what that means. Would you like to share about that?
Yeah, so cancer diagnoses come in stages. So stage 1 means that it's in situ, so it hasn't spread anywhere and it's just in one place. So if you had a lump in your breast and that was all, it's stage 1. Then if it's migrated to your lymph nodes, it's another step. Then if it's gone to bones or other organs, it's usually stage 4 by that stage. So stage 4 is considered terminal. Some people have had radical remissions and survive stage 4, but statistically speaking, the chances of survival are probably 0.0 something percent. So it's essentially a terminal diagnosis that you need to learn to live with until you die. You know, it's you do treatments that will extend your life and make your life comfortable. Like I'm involved with palliative care and had a very, very long, challenging journey getting my pain under control. So often when it's stage 4, palliative care are involved because there's usually pain involved. And, you know, treatment is, you know, treatment that they give you is never to save your life, but just to prolong your life. But obviously there's things you can do, you know, like cannabis oil and stuff like that, that could possibly bring about healing. You know, I can't honestly say that I believe that this stage 4 is able to be turned around. Like I do feel like it is going to kill me. And I'm not sure how other stage 4 people feel, but that's pretty much, it's terminal. And I was given a prognosis of 3 to 5 years. And then at one stage when it went to my lungs, I was given a 6 to 12 month diagnosis. That was a while ago now. So yeah, you do tend to be given a prognosis as well.
So how many years are you in now? You're at about 4, what are we, 3 years. Yeah.
Yep. So I've hit the bottom end of the prognosis, and they gave me 3 to 5. So I could live another 2 years. I could live longer than that, because if it stays in your bones and doesn't migrate to your organs, you can live it with it in your bones for a long time, but it's still considered terminal.
And I'd just like to share, like, Gypsy looks like really well and full of energy and so vital today. But there's definitely been like big periods of time when your energy and your capacity to do life and to do anything it's been really up and down, hasn't it? Like,
yeah, I mean, there was a period of time when I needed sorry, yeah, there was a period of time when I had to have carers here all the time. Like I could not have my children without a friend being here. And like I used to be able to feel myself dying. Like I would phone my sister and say, I can feel myself dying today, and that would be a really sad day. But as of late, I don't feel that I can't feel myself dying, and I have some vitality. So, you know, maybe my cancer is behaving itself, and this is just the dance that we will do forever now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So how has this journey changed your family life and your perspective in life and priorities?
Yeah, probably what I should say, just to paint a little bit of a picture, is that, as you know, Kathy, I did a lot of work around end of life.
Yes.
I was a death doula for a while, and I ran a group on the Central Coast where we would run end of life events every month. We would do a death cafe or a film night and talk about end of life. So end of life is my jam. That's what I do. So, so this diagnosis came out of nowhere, and to a woman who was already okay with end of life. So I imagine if it hit you and you didn't deal with death, then it would be extra shocking. And I've also journeyed with my mum. So this is a very familiar journey with me, for me.
And for those listening that don't know Gypsy, you were a carer for your mum as she was dying of cancer as well, when you were at the tender age of how
33. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, even though I was one step ahead of every step of the diagnosis, because I just knew that I had cancer and I knew it was bad, I totally went into shock. Like the night that I got told, I was actually catatonic. I was literally like, a heap of my friends were around, and I was literally just sitting there just going, what the fuck? And the second night after diagnosis, I literally went through these waves of disbelief, and I just kept saying to my, excuse my French, but I just kept saying to Michael, what the fuck? Like I was just sitting on the bed. It was just, the reality was just sinking in, and I was just in absolute shock. Like my whole world just shattered in an instant. And, you know, I'm not scared of death because I've had the near-death experience, as you also know. So I know where we go when we die, and it's a very, very beautiful place. So I'm not scared of being dead, but the fact that I have two children that are age 5 and 11 was just, you know, you're a mum, you know, the idea. And, you know, Sanaya was only 3 at the time. He was a baby. And I was like, if I die now, my children, my son is not going to remember me. And that was all I kept coming back to, was my children's worlds are going to shatter when I tell them that I'm dying. Like they know that I have cancer, but the fact that two small babies, you know, young kids who should never have to have their hearts broken in this way are going to be just devastated. And that's all that I come back to. It's like just the pain, like I'm already grieving having to say goodbye to them. And it's really like I cried every day for the first year. Literally, like, and I could cry now just talking about it. So, you know, the impact was massive. Yeah. And to answer your second question, you know, how did it change things? I mean, it instantly, you know, we've all heard that saying, you know, when you're on your deathbed, you're not mourning how much you didn't work, you know, and that family should be our priority. And, you know, when you have a death sentence, that is all that matters. And if you're a mum, all that matters is your children. And so up until that point, you know, I was a struggling single mom. The kids would say, Mummy, come and watch telly with us. And I'd be like, I can't because I've got to cook dinner. Or, Mummy, come and play with me. I can't because I'm folding the washing. Mummy, come and do this with me. Have a bath with me. I can't because I'm folding up the, you know, the washing or whatever. And there's just this constant calling of my children for me to be present with them. And because I was a struggling single mum, I could never say yes to that. So instantly, life became about those meaningful relationships, and everything fell away. Work fell away. I had to drop my ayahuasca apprenticeship, which meant the world to me. I pretty much was about to rebrand my business into a tantric business. I had to drop that. My relationship with my partner changed overnight, and nothing mattered except creating and leaving legacy for my children, so that if I died next week, that they understood how much I love them, and making memories and having lovable, memorable moments with them. And that's nothing else mattered.
Yeah. So I'd love you to flesh that last bit out a bit. Legacy. Let's talk about legacy. So what sort of things did you create? Are you creating for legacy? What does that look like, feel like to you?
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about legacy. And I have a really poignant story. Many months ago now, my friend Jenna took me down to Westmead Hospital for an MRI scan, and when we came back, we'd parked our cars at Carryong, and we were going back to my car, and she got really upset about the fact that I was dying. And I said, look, Jen, at least we know, and we've got time to prepare, and I can prepare the children. And the actual fact is that today, on this very day, there are thousands of people around the world who aren't going to make it home to their families. They're going to be killed in car crashes. They're going to have heart attacks out of the blue, an aneurysm, whatever. So let's be grateful for the fact that I know. And then I got in the car and I drove down Old Woy Woy Road, which and I kid you not, I was on the road for 3 minutes, and there was a helicopter landing in the middle of the road because somebody had just died in a car crash. And I was like, that's what the timing couldn't have been more perfect. And that's what I really, really want to instill in people, is that we don't die when we're old necessarily.
That's right.
And, my grandfather died just suddenly out of the blue at 42, had a heart attack, dropped dead on the floor. A couple of years ago, my male friend, who's the same age as me, his wife phoned him and said, I feel sick, and died on the fucking telephone. She was 42 years old. So what I have always been trying to teach people is that death doesn't come when you're necessarily 80 years old. And I want people to start creating legacy today.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got children.
Because none of us know how long we've got. None of us know. We could go we don't go at any moment.
We think we know, but we don't know. So the need to create legacy is present in everybody's life, not just mine and those with terminal diagnosis, but, anybody could not make it home from work. So I feel like cancer was given to me to wake up the community, because, I'm fairly prominent in my community, as you know, and I feel like I have a sphere of influence. So, already a woman on Instagram messaged me and said, because of you, I went and got my breast lump checked, and it was cancer, and it's early diagnosis now. And because of your posts, I will survive. And I want people to have the same experience with legacy, in that from watching my journey, that, and legacy can be anything. So some of the things that I did, which you wouldn't do this unless you were terminally diagnosed, but I went and bought birthday presents up until their 25th birthday. So they've got a present wrapped up in a card for every birthday until they're 25. But something that I've always done for my kids, and this might be because I've always felt like I was going to die young. I had this feeling many, many, many years ago, if not decades ago. I felt like I was going to die young. And when I fell pregnant with the kids, I started a diary for them. So they have, 4 or 5, we're up to number 5 diaries, where I just write down what we do. I wrote about the pregnancy and the birth, and just random stuff that they can pick up. If I was to die tomorrow, not from cancer, they still have some, because when my mum died, I realized, and you probably would realize this with your dad too, when somebody dies, so many stories die with them.
Yeah. And my grandma,
their whole story.
I wasn't old enough. I'm going to cry now. Yeah, I was really close to my dad's mum, my grandma, and you know, I was only like 14. Like, I didn't know to ask her those sorts of things. Like, so no matter what age you are, you know, something that, yeah, like that the next generation can look back on when they're ready. They might not be ready yet, but like in 10, 20 years after
Yeah.
you pass away, they might just want to know more about you, like little, so what was like anything, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I keep getting that, like, oh, I should talk to my aunties and try and get, and I just don't get around to it. And I've, you know, even from when I was following your journey, I remember watching like about, you know, about you doing the diaries, and I was like, oh, I should really do that. Like when I say first 12 months of being a mother, and all those little things, like you already start to forget, you know, like 12 months, 2 years, 3 years in, and I still haven't done it. I'm like, I've got to get onto that. Like I really do want to make that a priority, and, you know, get it for myself as well as her, my daughter, for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
think getting started is the difficult part. And once you get in a habit of doing it, I mean, I sometimes do it with the kids. They'll color in or draw a picture on one side and I'll write on the other side. So you can make it, you know, a fun thing that you do together. But, you know, as a bare minimum, you know, that's something doable. You can make it just once a week, have a cup of tea, get the journal out and write a few pages. And because I had a really big fear about my kids not knowing who I was as a person, and not knowing how much I loved them, and also being forgotten. Like I've had this amazing life, Kathy. I have had, like, you don't know the half of it. And I've had this really incredible life. And I was like, I want my story told. So I actually used, I've done so many things about legacy. We can talk about a few of them, and maybe people can message me if they want more ideas. But there's a book writing app called Storyworth. And you can generate questions. There's like 52, I think. You can make it as long as you want, but they make it so that there's like a question a week for a year, and you can send, like I could send them to you. I could set the questions for you to answer if you were my mum or you were my grandma or whatever, or you can set the questions yourself. So I wrote this 2-volume book, which my friend has read. She said it was amazing, and she couldn't read it at some times because it was too painful, and she cried her way through it. But you know, I chunked down my life into 52 questions as the first volume anyway. And, you know, I got to talk about, you know, what I was like as a child, and what it was like to grow up with a gay mum, and what it was like to go and live in London at 18, having never lived out of home before, and, you know, what it was like to have children, what it was like to have postnatal depression. And I just got to write it all down. And the other thing that I've done is make, which is something that I really encourage people to do, is to make some coming of age boxes. So Treya, my daughter, so when she menstruates, she'll get this box. It's got some sexy knickers in it. It's got the book Pussy. It's got a blanket. I crocheted her a blanket. It's got a couple of books in there. It's got crystals in there. It's got a beautiful custom made necklace that she can wear when she's bleeding. There's a hand dipped candle. There's all these beautiful things, and a beautiful letter for her. And there's also one for my boy that he'll get when he's 13. And it's got like a knife in there, and a diary, and all sorts of really cool stuff. Some tantric books for him to learn about the female body and stuff like that. So just so it's all down with my sister, and she brings, each year we get the presents that I'd wrapped up, and I give them to the kids. And I've also written them a letter that they get when I die. It's like, I can't even reread it because it was so heartbreaking to write. But yeah, that's just some of the things I've done. And photo books, because in this digital age, we don't print our photos. So Chatbooks is amazing. It's an American company. The customer service is amazing. You can do it on your phone. I did it when I was in hospital. I just sat there and made photo books from my Instagram and Facebook posts. And yeah, just even if you just start to print every year, print out your photos from that year. And, you know, you can type about the memory, and yeah.
Fantastic. I love those ideas. And I love the way that you know, like also your energy like really lights up when you're talking about that, talking about doing those things. What was the process like? And we won't spend too long on this because we've just got 8 minutes on the clock left. But
Oh,
what
wow.
was yeah, the process of writing down your story, was that therapeutic to yourself as well as like wanting to like create that to pass on? How was that for you?
It was really interesting, actually, because like I was posing myself questions like, what was it like to grow up without a dad? And what was it like to grow up with a gay mum? And, you know, my early life was traumatic. I had a traumatic upbringing. And it was really bittersweet, actually, because, you know, I was reflecting on, you know, what was my childhood like? And the reality was that it was not perfect and it was really challenging sometimes. So I had to do it in parts. And I had to do the whole legacy thing in parts, actually, because it's so in the mindset that one day I'm going to die. So I had to do a little bit and then stop and then go back to it. But yeah, it was therapeutic, it was painful, it was joyful, it was all those things.
Mm.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for sharing. Okay. I want to, so I feel like we've covered what's most important now: family, leaving legacy. So my next one, it's a bit of a long one and it sort of ties in a few things, but I feel like, you know, we don't do death and dying and grief very well in the West, in our culture, I feel. And we don't talk about it a lot. I feel like there's so much fear around it, you know, and that we're kind of a bit scared to go there. I know when I was on my grief journey, I like really felt that there was nowhere to go. And I ended up like out of pure desperation and just like not being able to find anywhere to take my grief and my feelings, starting my own grief circles at the time, in the last couple of years of, you know, my journey with dad, because I'd got to the stage of having chronic grief. But as someone who is deep in the journey of both living and dying, what would your advice be to those who are listening that might have someone close to them that is actively dying, that has maybe had a diagnosis, or maybe, you know, they're at some point in that journey and they don't know how to engage with them. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to support them. And they don't know what not to say. What would, you know, what would your guidance as somebody that's in that position be?
Yeah, look,
And obviously
I'm laughing because
everyone's going to be different, but
yeah, I think there's a definite what not to say is we're all dying. I've had 2 people say that to me, and that is so like, it's so many shades of wrong, Kathy, honestly. The fact that we're all mortal beings that will one day die is like, and actually dying is so vastly different. I can't even find the words. And saying we're all dying is like making small the journey. And on this journey, there are so many layers of grief, like grieving that I can't do the work I want to do, grieving that my sex life is not the same anymore, you know, grieving the fact that what I used to do recreationally, I can't do anymore, and I can't parent the same, and I'm dealing with this grief. So do not ever say we're all dying, because it's not the same. And I think there are some really amazing books out there, and you know, maybe there's a place where I can write down some recommended books for you,
absolutely.
that you could put on your website, because I've got a massive library of end of life books. There's some really great ones about how to care for the dying, how to care for yourself while your loved ones are dying. But I think that just being honest, like, I really want to be here for you and I have no experience of this journey. So please, can you let me know what you most need? And I'm here for you. And, you know, let me drop around some food, or let me come and help you clean, or whatever. But just being honest rather than clutching at anything to say. I think admitting to being clueless
Mm.
And there's some vulnerability in that. You have to be authentic and you have to be vulnerable, but the person who's dying is so in their vulnerability, it's not funny. So you can meet them there. So that would be my main thing, is just saying, I want to help you in any way, whether that's driving you to appointments, accompanying you for results, that kind of thing, cooking your dinner, cleaning your house, taking your kids, whatever, but just giving it to the person who's having the experience, because it's always different. But just never ever we're all dying. Yeah,
that's such great advice. Thank you.
So
we're getting down to the last few minutes of our Woman's Time conversation today. So how can people support you? Let's talk about your 100 Angels.
Yeah, so I take lots of supplements that are proven to work, because I did that genetic testing. So things like mistletoe and vitamin B12 and medicinal mushrooms and cannabis oil and all these things that I need to do that are not covered by Medicare. So I came up with the idea of 100 Angels. So I figured that most people, even myself, could afford a cup of coffee a week to donate. So the request was a cup of coffee a week for 6 months. So that's $5 a week for 6 months. So you can either set up a direct debit into my healing account, which a lot of people did, or some people chose just to donate $130, which is what that works out to be. And if everybody donated $5, that is a lot of money. Like $500 a week covers my medical stuff, like my vitamin C infusions, everything. And I only use it for medical stuff. There's a separate account, so I'm really clear on keeping that separate. It doesn't pay for me to go out for dinner or on holidays. But that, like $5 a week to somebody isn't much. You don't really miss that. But to me, when 100 people get together and do that, that is life-changing. And I believe that's why I'm still here and I haven't actually died yet, because people have helped me. So, we can put the details on your website. People can text message me directly and I'll send them my bank details. But yeah, like it changes our life, and I really feel like it prolongs my life. Yeah.
So it's giving you more time with your baby.
Yeah.
You're not so small babies anymore, growing, but still small. Yeah.
Yeah, too small to lose their mum. Trey is not even 12.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, what's your bigger than you dream?
My bigger than me dream, I guess, is I would like to be here in 2 years for Sanaya's 8th birthday. Yeah, that's my goal, is to be here in 2 years. And what I want people to take away from this, just quickly, because I can see the clock ticking, is check your breasts every month. Start to, get takeaway dinner once a week and leave the washing up so you can spend time with your kids, and stop working so much and being distracted. Put your mobile phones down. Be present to your children. Yeah.
So everyone, thanks so much for watching. You can find Gypsy's full bio, how you can support her, and this interview if you want to watch it again, over at my website, kathypopperworld.com. Thank you so much, Gypsy, for jumping on and having a chat with us. And I feel like we better end before it cuts out. I love you so much. I can't wait to share this.
Thanks, darling.
Lots of people watch it.